All right, rapid viewers. I keep saying that. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for being a part of all of the programs we have lined up for today. And yes, if you are just joining us, remember we've been here from the hour of 7, and we began the day with letting you know what today in history signified. We talked about, the assassination of the Indian Prime Minister. We also did talk about the first woman to fly solo in history. Also, we did make mention of a lot of health tips that are important for you to add up to your daily routine. And for today, we were talking about sharpening and strengthening your memory. Now, moving on from there, we did the headlines, the newspaper reviews. Moving on, we went to sports and then to Eastern Circle. Thank you so much for that one right there, all the way from the East. And now we are headed to the very last hour. We are in the very last hour of Rapid Dawn. And of course, I did promise you big stories and big conversations. So, yes, we are about to get right into it. Now, I know it is no news. Everywhere around the internet space, media outlets, we have seen people talk about the 2027 coalition. The Atiku camp offers Obi vice president's role in one term deal. Wow. We don't know how true that is because both parties have come out to debunk that, saying, you know what? This is not true. It's just malicious lies. The media coming up with what they think they want to. It's just a narrative that was fabricated. We have heard a lot of that. But today, we have someone from the inside who can give us more insight on this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Blessing Ezokoli Chimezie right here in the studio with us. And he is the founder, the convener of Take Back Niger. And Take Back Niger is literally the foundation of the obedience movement. So yes, thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you so much, Martha. It's good to be here. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right. Let's talk about the coalition, 2027 coalition. I know you have a lot to talk about it, but let's just go on with that. Is that a true rumor? Is that just a rumor or it's true?
Oh, okay. So, once again, thank you. So the thing is, coalition. Yes, there's coalition, right? Conversations around politicians coming together for the purpose of bringing good governance to Nigerians. Because for the obedient movement and His Excellency Mr. Peter Obi, that is what is important to us. We are interested in forming coalition with like mind to actually bring, succor to Nigerians, to, end poverty, to end insecurity and all of that. So if the question is, are there conversations around coalition? Yes, there is, yeah. Couple of leaders across board. Some are even members of the APC, some are members of the PDP. His Excellency Mr. Peter Obi is part of that conversation. There is the SDP, there is ADC, and so there is coalition conversation around coming together to form a formidable force to be able to actually defeat the incumbent and the current people in power. But away from defeating them, the conversation really at this point is about how do these people, politicians and Nigerians alike, come together to actually fix our country and take Nigeria from where it is to where it should be. So that is the major conversation. But coming to the rumor about Atiku and Peter Obi, so I think that is where a lot of people miss the point, because the coalition conversation is not about the both of them. The coalition conversation is about, at least the last time I checked, they used to be 6, but they were reduced to 5. So you had the SDP chapter of led by Malam Nasir El-Rufai. You have PDP faction led by Atiku Abubakar. You have the old CPC faction led by Malami, the former Minister of Justice. You have the another faction led by Amechi, that is a APC faction led by Amechi. That's Chibika Amechi, the former governor of Rivers State. Then you have the Labour Party or the Obedient Movement faction led by His Excellency Mr. Peter Obi. Then you have the NMPP led by Kwankwaso. But as at the last conversation, Kwankwaso had made it clear to the coalition that he doesn't want to be part of it. Okay. So he has now been reduced to 5 people, on the table discussing. And, there was a meeting about a week ago, yeah, and, all of these conversations are ongoing, okay, right? So reducing it to Obi and Atiku, for me, I think it's missing the point because it's a lot more than the both of them.
Would it be really about missing the point? Because we have seen these people, Atiku Abubakar particularly, come out to express, how dissatisfied he was with the 2023 presidential election, saying that he and Peter Obi would have been a formidable force if they came together. So I don't think it is out of place for Nigerians to think that the coalition would just be between the both of them.
Well, again, I think that is not entirely true. I think that the whole talks about Obi and Atiku is just a media fabrication, honestly. And this is because, I'm saying this because as somebody that knows what is really happening behind the scene, I can tell you that, I'll give you an instance. So, you saw the picture of El-Rufai and Peter Obi, yeah?
Okay.
Exactly. So, there's also conversation between the both of them. Right? Okay. And some of us actually believe that Obi and El-Rufai would be a better ticket to have than to go with Atiku and Obi. But the whole point, there's a part of 2023 election that people didn't pay attention to. And so when somebody like Atiku says, Atiku and Obi would have been a better ticket, I don't agree. I totally disagree with that point. And I'll tell you why. The reason is because 2023 was not about individuals. It was about ideology. It was about what Obi offered. The whole idea, because I'm part of the movement, right? And I was part of those that started the movement. So our idea about Obi was not about him as an individual. It was about what he represented. Okay. We wanted a shift from where we are today, the kind of politics we play. Okay. So Obi represented an idea of a new politics, of a new kind of politics. Not necessarily no shishi, but a movement away from the conventional politicking of, people coming together, sharing this, sharing that. I'm going to give you ministerial posts and all of that. So we wanted something different. We wanted somebody that would be able to, first of all, shut the cost of governance, right? Because some of us recognize that the biggest challenge with Nigeria at the moment is our kind of government, the over-bloated kind of system, the so much concentration of power in Abuja and all of that. Okay. So you needed somebody that has what it takes to shut all of those things down. And that was what Peter Obi represented. So if Peter Obi and Atiku had even come together in 2023, I can tell you that they would not have won. That, you know why? The reason is because Obi, if you notice, if you go to Nigerians and do like a poll, you notice that most of the people that talked about Obi and wanted to vote for Obi and voted for him were mostly first-time voters. Okay. So Obi activated a new layer, a new type of people, you understand, coming out to get involved in politics. These were people that ordinarily had given up in Nigerian politics, that were not interested and all of that. So there is no way you will come back today and throw all of those conversations away and then go back to an article that in so many people's mind represented the status quo. Like he represents the current, crop of politics and the whole kind of politics. So for us, there was nothing going to be different. So for a lot of people in the obedient movement, if we went out of our way, because yes, you mentioned we know they give shishi kind of mantra that we that we know they give shishi was actually the whole idea was that unlike other politicians that give their supporters money to get things done, in the Obi camp, we spend our money. So there are two different things. I'll give you an example. I led the first 1 million man march to the PDP office to ask for P2B, to say, give us P2B. That protest, I led it to the PDP office. The conversation started because we felt that we needed to pressure, PDP into understanding that, Obi is the person that will be able to motivate Nigerians to come and vote. But if you follow the pictures and the things that happen, the videos, you can't bring that level of people out on the street without payment, without paying them. Nobody, see, if you know how, if you know that protest and activism is a whole ass economy on its own, right? People are getting paid 5,000, 10,000 to come out of the street to make demands.
Okay.
There, you would hardly see anybody that will come out on the street today to ask you that, oh, we want Atiku, and you go behind the scene, they are not paid. Either maybe Atiku did not pay them, but somebody in Atiku's camp must have activated that structure.
So you think that the acceptance from the people is by the kind of noise that is made around them? Because the truth is, he had a lot of noise around him at the 2023 presidential election. And if we had to judge by the number of people that followed him and the obedient movement, he would have been president by now. Okay. But the fact that he is not president, don't you think it doesn't mean that the crowd does not necessarily mean approval?
So that is where I would disagree with you, and I will tell you why. Okay. Very respectfully. So I am one of those that believe that Peter Obi won the election convincingly in the last election, and there are documents to prove this, right? Which some of us, we just felt we provided the court with these documents to prove that Peter Obi won the election. We had instances in Plateau State, for example, where our votes was reduced from 1-point-something million to, you know, barely, I think, 400,000 or thereabouts. Okay. Yeah, we had instances in Benue State where we saw massive rigging, and we presented the court with evidences of all of those things. We had cases. I voted in Abuja, and in my polling units there were about 10 different. In my, you know, the place I voted, there were about 10 different polling units. Before INEC came to where I voted, it was already past 12 before INEC came. So you had a lot of people that wanted to vote that couldn't even vote. Okay. So there was so much, you know, proof to the fact that people actually came out and they wanted to vote for Peter Obi. Peter Obi's votes were reduced drastically in so many places, like Akwa Ibom. We have evidences to prove. In Rivers State, it was too obvious. In Lagos, you know, so we had voter suppression. So the what INEC declared was not a clear indication of what actually happened.
But the court ruled out the matter.
Exactly. So I mean, we can argue on. I'm not going to come here and say that you know, the justices of the Supreme Court were wrong or right. Yeah. I mean, Nigeria and in the obedient movement, we respect the rule of law. Okay. Yeah, and that is also the reason why you didn't see any form of a demonstration and all of that, because we respect the laws of the land and we respect the court. We are very law abiding. But I can tell you that we won the last election. All
right, what he said. But anyways, let's move on to the next question. What possible coalition are you seeing? Because now you have clearly said that there's a possibility that it might not happen with the Atiku camp.
Yes.
What possible?
Yes. So I will tell you from the depth of my heart, the coalition will happen, right? Okay. It will happen, definitely happen. And the two major players might still be Peter Obi and Atiku, but in a different form. So what is very likely going to happen, is that the coalition will narrow down on Peter Obi as the presidential candidate, right? Okay. Then Atiku camp will be saddled with the responsibility of providing his vice presidential candidate or his running mate. Okay. So this is really the conversation, right? And His Excellency Mr. Peter Obi has made it clear that he doesn't want to actually be the one to choose who was going to be his running mate. So he wants it to be a decision of the coalition. Okay. He wants his running mate to be the decision. And let's be real, please. You see, the office of the presidency, we have reduced it to you know, retirement ground for politicians, and it shouldn't be so. That office is so important and so central to our existence as a nation, right? That it requires a lot of energy to actually manage that office. Okay. There are so many documents that come to your table, except if you don't want to be the real president. There are so many places to visit. You can count how many times our president has, you know, done official, you know, visits to, you know, distressed parts of the country where you have banditry and all of that. You need a P2B.
In what capacity?
As the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, your number one, you know, role.
No, you did make mention of the fact that he has been doing all of that.
No. I'm saying that, like, what you expect of the president is actually to, you know, go to parts of the country where you have distress. Okay. So what we have today is a president that is not living up to those expectations. So Nigerians, for example, there's a collapse of building in Lagos. We don't see in a country that works, you see presidential visits in such cases, right? And what that does to you, what that does is you have a president that is up and doing, right? That knows his job. Okay. One of the things, what a presidential visit does to you as a Nigerian is that it gives you hope that, look, government is interested and they are doing something about this.
So what if the president delegates someone on his
Exactly.
behalf?
So there are a lot of cases happening, but there are exceptions. Issues that has to do with human lives, right? Because the primary responsibility of government and the primary responsibility of the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria should be the protection of lives and properties. Yeah. Absolutely. So when there's disruption in such kind of scenarios, you expect to see, even if it's not the president, but a high level delegation from the presidency. But in most cases, it doesn't happen. I'll give you an instance. There was a disruption in Marate axis of Borno State, where you had, disruption of our military and all of that. Yeah. If Peter Obi was the president of Nigeria, I can almost bet with my life that he will be in Marate before now. You know what that would do? You have Nigerian soldiers that are putting their lives on the line for our people, right? And so when you have such kind of disruption, you go and give them confidence. You tell them, I'm with you, I'm fighting with you. Do you understand what I'm saying? So these are some of the things Nigerians want to see that we are not seeing, and that is what a Peter Obi can guarantee you. Because since the INEC declared the result, Peter Obi has been up and running. He has been visiting all parts of the country, spending his money, giving hope to people.
That takes me to the next conversation.
All right.
You know, when you were speaking about this, I asked you in what capacity?
As the former presidential candidate.
Okay.
Yes.
That's
and as a citizen of Nigeria.
Why that is funny, is that an office, the office of a former presidential candidate? But let's just leave that aside.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people have placed comparison between the kind of appearance that he does make on the media space and that which Atiku makes, because we are going to be placing them side by side, because this coalition news and rumors is between the both parties. And as far as
media,
as far as the media is concerned, these are the major players when it comes to conversation about this coalition now. Both of them are the major players. So most comparisons are just going to be between Peter Obi and Atiku Abubakar. Unfortunately, the person who was supposed to join us from that camp couldn't make it. But I mean, we have you here, so let's just have that conversation. Now, for the likes of an Atiku, we know that he's a capitalist. Yeah. So business-minded.
They are both capitalists, actually.
Exactly.
Is also from
which is why a lot of people will originally think that these both parties coming together will form a formidable force, because they are both capitalists. They think alike. They can generate revenue for the country, and they can stabilize the economy of Nigeria, which is one thing that is very obvious to the public that they share in common. But now you're saying, that might not just be all that is necessary for a coalition. Now, the likes of Atiku Abubakar, you will see on the news talking about stuff like the economic policies that were being introduced. If there's something going on, he talks about that. I know that the former presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, always speaks of these things as well. But we have seen some level of commonization in his appearance. And by that I mean, if there's the littlest thing possible, he's over there. If he's in the mosque eating during the Ramadan, he's here. Now, this will put a lot of pressure, I think, on him when he becomes the president. Because unlike he is doing now, he might not be able to sustain that kind of appearance eventually.
Okay, so not like I disagree with you. Okay. What you call commonization is actually that new kind of politics that Peter Obi wants to introduce, and that is what his campaign is built around.
All right.
So Peter Obi wants to, for everything he does, he's constantly thinking about the common people. How do I reach out to the common Nigerians on the street? I'll give you an instance. Okay. So he was in my house about a month ago, Okay. And when he was coming to my house, even some of his security men were like, his security team were like, where are we going to? I said, you guys are coming to my house. And they were like, coming to your house as what? Why? And all. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. That, to them, you understand, is why is Oga reducing himself? Why is he commonizing himself? Just like you said, right? But to me and to my family, right, it meant something different. And that, for me, is what leadership is about. And so if you say that, that kind of politics, we are not used to it as Nigerians, I can agree with you. But is that actually the right thing to do? What is leadership about? What is politics for? If it's not to give succor to the downtrodden, to those people in the mosques that you talked about that he's eating with, he's not just eating with them. P2B makes donations to all of those institutions where kids are learning, Almajiri schools and all of that. I have visited a lot of schools with him, like where he goes for donations and all of that. And when you see how excited these children are, in short, he came to my house. My sister-in-law's daughter was in my house, and a 10-year-old, she was so excited. I asked her, "Do you know him?" She was like, "Yes, I know him." How did you know this man? He said, "Yeah, Mr.
What
Peter."
if that was as a result of your personal?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't, because the girl just came. So I was shocked. If I wasn't shocked, I would have, I wouldn't have asked her, because I was shocked that this young girl, this small girl, actually knows this man. So she was like, "Oh, he has been to my school, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, really? So the point I'm trying to make is, the whole idea of P2B bringing himself down to the people is actually the kind of leadership that Nigeria deserves at this point.
Do you think it is sustainable?
Now, for sustainability, I think this is his life. So it's not like he didn't start doing these things because he wanted to be president. That is the point people are missing. This has always been, this man went to, he went to Hayati, yeah, when as far back as 2010, when they had, what's it called, when there were explosions, earthquake and all of that, yeah. So he has always been somebody that he said it a couple of times, that the day he paid the gratuities of teachers in Anambra and retired workers was the day he met a woman in the church, like one of those downtrodden people, holding her and say, "Please get out of the church. You people that are politicians are wicked. You don't pay teacher salary," and all of that. He had to go to the woman's house to listen to her. So for P2B as an individual, that is the kind of leadership he has always been used to. As our governor in Anambra State, because I'm from Anambra, yeah, as our governor, P2B was almost everywhere. There is no town, there's no school where
Don't you think that's my point?
Exactly the point. So Nigerians are not used to that kind of politics. But in Anambra, it worked, because let me tell you what he did. What he did was that, say all the secondary school students in Anambra had his phone number as a governor.
But that doesn't directly
he impacted
his system of governance.
No, but
because the fact that I come to visit you and hear you does not mean I have the know-how, or does not mean I will directly address
it helps me to form policies that will affect, because I need to actually know what the people on the street are thinking.
Okay.
So the biggest problem we have in Nigerian politics is that when somebody wins the election, either as a governor, as a president, or whatever, so you insulate yourself with a lot of praise singers, and then this professor, this PhD, and all of that. So when you get into office, sometimes you don't even get to know what is really happening, because they shield some of these raw feedbacks from you. And that is what P2B is saying, that you can't run a country like that, because you need to actually get raw feedback from the street. So the only way you can do that is to actually be close to the masses, to the people, listen to them, visit them as often as possible. And which was also the reason some of us believe that an Atiku cannot provide that kind of new politics that we are looking at. So he cannot, at his age, right? 81, 82 by 2027, right? Some of us believe he's old enough to be. His son celebrated a 50-year-old anniversary. He's a commissioner in Adamawa State, doing great things, right? For somebody that has a 50-year-old son, right, which for me is also getting old, really, you should actually be sitting down and then helping younger people to grow in politics. And even P2B.
So hence the coalition between Atiku and Peter.
So P2B himself knows that majority of his supporters, including myself, will not support him after 2027. If he comes out again in 2023 for whatever reason, 2031 for whatever reason, most of us won't support him. You know why? Because we feel that at that time he's too old for the kind of energy required for presidency. See, Nigeria needs to stop sending the oldest of the oldest in our society to presidency. It is not, that is why they tell you, oh, Buhari, you know, he's going for medical checkups every other minute. We don't need that. You need youthful energy. You need people that are still articulate. You need people that can still wake up in the night and then have meetings. People that can still sit through meetings, peruse documents and all of that. That is what you need for the office of the presidency. Okay. And that is our biggest argument against an Atiku. A lot of obedience don't have anything particularly against Atiku as an individual. Okay. Do you understand? Even Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I can tell you, as an individual, I'm not entirely sure I have a problem with him. I only have a problem with his kind of politics, what he represents, which I think that, like I analyzed earlier, where Nigeria is at the moment requires a lot of commitment, patriotism. It doesn't require sharing. We have shared too much for so long.
Okay. This should take me to the next question I have to ask you. I understand the fact that, okay, we need younger people, you know, to be at the helm of affairs. Presidency shouldn't be for the old and everything that you have said. Yeah. Do you also realize that being close to these corridors of power gives you some level of know-how and experience that helps you make better decisions when you get into office? Looking at this from this point of view, do you think the former presidential candidate Peter Obi has the know-how to rule this country?
Okay, so what are the skill sets you need? Leadership, generally.
Before you go on, okay, I want you to note that having those skills is different from actively implementing those skills.
I understand that. I understand that. Okay. So the reality is that P2B doesn't just have the skill sets that we need, right? He has also proven how he has applied this skill set across board in different things he has actually done in his life. Okay. So starting from his businesses, how he built his business, you need to actually listen to some of the stories around his business, you know, his business exploits from when he was a student and he had, banks were using his building in UNN, from where the current Sultan of Sokoto was living in P2B's house when he was a student in UNN, right? So when you talk of growing wealth, P2B has done that successfully over the years. He understood that, right? Then you come to governance, right? What are the basic skills? None of us has ever said that P2B has all the skill set required to govern Nigeria. Okay. But one thing you also need to understand is that nobody has all the skill set required. However, the basic, where Nigeria is, for me, at every given point in time also determines the kind of individuals you need. Okay. Now, the biggest skill set I believe that somebody that should be or should be our president requires are two things for me. Okay. One of them is what I call your ability, your frugal credentials, your ability to shut down the cost of running governance is very important. Nigeria is too overbloated. The bureaucracy is too much. We need somebody that has proven that in public service, he has what it takes to shut down the cost of running their offices. It's just like, this media house, for example. If your overhead, every year is 1 billion and you're only generating a revenue of 200 million, it is not sustainable. Okay. But that is the scenario we have in Nigeria, situation where we have a system where we're borrowing as much as 13 trillion to fund this year's budget. And our projected revenue, of 35 trillion and all of that, we are sure we are not going to meet it. You know why? Because the price of crude has dropped from our projected $75 dollars to $65. And our input or our production has not also increased from the projected 2 million barrels per day. We are still around 1.4, 1.5 million barrels per day. So this means that we don't have enough money as a country as against what people generally believe. Okay. So what you now need is somebody that has the skill set to cut the cost and reduce it drastically by at least 45 to 60%. Okay. That is what you need. And there is nobody in the conversation that has that skill set more than Peter Obi. In short, that is why people say he doesn't give shishi. Because it's frugal to a fault. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you need that skill set. Then number two, which I think is as important as the first one, is empathy. If you're not empathetic, you can't run a system like Nigeria. Nigeria has been governed so badly for so long that for you to actually, make any headway in this country, you need to have empathy. Empathy. What do I mean by empathy? You need to be able to, feel people's pain. You need to, for example, the way subsidy was removed, right? It's you can see that there was no empathy. You didn't think about the impact of these things in the lives of people, how they are going to survive.
But let me cut you short right there.
Yeah.
When these people were presenting their manifestos for the 2023 presidential election, one thing that was also very common between all three manifestos, that's Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, and Sowore. Oh, what am I saying? The thing that was common between all of these manifestos were the removal of fuel subsidy.
Yeah.
All of these people spoke about removal of subsidy. President Tinubu, Atiku Abubakar, and
I agree.
Peter Obi.
Because they are all capitalists.
Exactly. All three of these people spoke about it. Now, it's easy to criticize a government that you are not actively in. What if the options that were available to it? Because remember, it's the conversation about subsidy didn't start today.
It's been, even the former president Buhari said it was scam and all of that, yet he paid subsidy all through. Yeah.
Don't you think that that particular issue that has bedeviled the nation for a very long time needed some sort of firmness to take out that subsidy? Because if you ask me, the reason it probably might have not been removed from President Jonathan to President Muhammadu Buhari.
No, Jonathan actually attempted.
He attempted, but it failed.
Partially,
It failed.
Largely because of the people in government now, by the way. It's important to mention that.
I know that they kicked against it at that time.
For political reasons, actually.
Okay. Yeah. So, but that should tell you that when you are not in the shoes directly, you might not know the gravity of what that person is fighting. Because you would agree with me that empathy is the reason that removing that subsidy might have not worked during President Jonathan, because he was also a very empathic president. He was, and a lot of people attributed, some of the failures of that government to his empathy.
Okay, so again, partially I agree that sometimes when you are outside, right, you don't see the gravity of the job required and all of that inside. But I also know that there are basic rules of engagement when you're dealing with issues around the economics and all of these things. So I'll give you instances, right? A Peter Obi would have removed fuel subsidy. That is a no-brainer. We all know he would have removed it. Okay. However, the argument is not about removal. It's actually about management of the removal. Okay. So let me tell you, a Peter Obi would have thrown a lot of money into removing fuel subsidy and then throwing the money back into the society. Okay. All of the money that you have saved from fuel subsidy, where are they? What a Peter Obi would have done differently is that he would have gone to, the Ekenediri Chukwus of this world, the major transport companies, right? Okay. We are removing fuel subsidy, but we are subsidizing transportation to be able to ease the stress on the people, right? We are removing fuel subsidy, but because we know the impact, we are going to throw this money into agriculture to reduce inflation, right? We are removing fuel subsidy, but the poorest of the poor in the society, we are going to throw in a lot of money to ensure that they are surviving. So this is the difference. Now you tell Nigerians that you're saving about 1.something trillion every month, right, from fuel subsidy. What the government is doing is that they are removing the money and they are sharing it to governors. These governors end up stashing these monies for their re-elections. They don't care. So a P2B presidency would have removed the fuel subsidy like Bola did, but he would have managed it a lot more better. And that is the argument. So that is where the empathy I'm talking about comes in. Now, Bola Ahmed Tinubu's presidency does not feel the impact. They are not behaving as if they feel the pains of Nigerians. I'm very close to the people. I lead Take Back Nigeria movement, probably the most potent youth group in the country. And then I get reports every day. Like every time I open my phone is about people begging me money, right? Why is that so? And these are some of young people that are doing well before now. You're not going to blame them because first of all, even if you earn the same amount of salary you earn in the last year, you're poor this year. Okay. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. So these are the issues.
So I listened to an interview this morning by one of the president's ministers. Okay. And in that interview, the same question was being thrown at him, the hardship of Nigerians, you know, and the complaints that have been put out there because of the inflation rate, the scarcity of food, you know, the interest rate skyrocketing. And of course, as at yesterday, 27.50% still being sustained, right? Now, the answer to that by one of his ministers was that sometimes you have to endure the immediate pain to enjoy the adverse effects.
We've heard that for so long. Okay. I mean,
so you don't think that at any point in the government of your chair now, you don't think at any point that will suffice?
I will think that maybe, right, at some point in Peter Obi's government, you would probably have where Nigerians will have to, maybe endure a few things, a few hardship here and there. Maybe they are constructing roads and they have to tell you, oh, you can't use it. You have to use inner roads that are not convenient. Those kind of things. They will come up here and there. However, where I have a problem is when somebody is preaching endurance to you, but they are living like la vida loca, like they are living like, they are living the best of lives. That minister that said that has 4 SUVs, new SUVs, purchased for him or her, right? That minister that is talking to you about, Nigerian suffering and all of that, can the minister come out and tell us how much of his salary or of his allowances or his extra coat he has been able to forfeit for the benefit of Nigerians? So these are the issues, and that is why some of us are arguing very strongly that the character of individuals around governance is also far much more fundamental than whatever promises they are giving you. Okay. Because if you have somebody that has outgrown greed, as the case of Peter Obi in this case right now, because Peter Obi as an individual has actually seen the best of lives. He started living the best of lives even as an undergraduate. He had the best of cars in the university. So he is not in any way a poor man anywhere in the world. He's probably one of the richest Nigerians. It's just that we don't know these things because some of their businesses are really not, some things that people talk about most of the time. So the point I'm trying to make is very simple. This was the same thing Buhari administration kept telling Nigerians that, you have to endure, we have to endure. And they kept on telling us endurance. But this same government came out and told us that they inherited one of the worst governments ever, right? You have seen a couple of them make that statement. And I agree with them because I also consider Buhari government a disaster. Do you understand? But the problem I have with the current government, right, is not necessarily about policies. Some of the policies are in the right direction. Okay. But the people implementing the policies are where you have a lot of gray areas. Okay. Most of them have not shown enough capacity. But away from capacity is the fact that there is no sense of, we are a poor country, so we have to live within our means. I know a lot of ministers even in the current government. The current minister of youth is my friend. Ayodele, he's a member of Ijele Sports Club, yeah? So he's my friend. I know them. So I know what I'm talking about when I say the kind of cars they drive, yeah, the kind of life they live is not reflective on the current state of things in our country. And this is where we have fundamental issues, right, with the way they are running the government. And that is why we believe that if Peter Obi has, said these things, in short, he met some young people yesterday at Farm City. And he told them, he said, you cannot be telling Nigerians to, to cut down their coat according to their size while living the best of your life. And we believe that if as the president or the leader of any government, you and your immediate family are not involved in, extravagant, over-bloated contracts, criminality, fraud, and everything, that even people around you will be afraid to do it because they know that there will be consequences. Okay. So the issues we have is a situation where the immediate people, the immediate first family, you understand, you see the likes of, Sheyi, for example, flying presidential jets and all of that. You see the wife of the president, because for me there is no office of the first lady. The wife of the president flying presidential jet on whose authority? Nobody voted for you. So these are the issues. These are the kind of things. The amount of money you can save from the immediate family alone. Go and check the budget. How much was quoted for their food alone? Go and check the budget. How much we built vice presidential lodge for 21 billion in this country when Nigerians are suffering. It's not as if the vice president is living in bush before now. But we built a 21 billion house. Do you know what a 21 billion can do? How much has the federal government distributed to all the NEL fund project that they are doing? How much have they distributed to all the young people in this country in schools? It's just about 24 billion. And you spend 21 billion to build one house for one person. We are spending 39 billion to renovate ICC. All of this kind of waste are not possible under a possible Goodluck, P2B's presidency. And that is what we are talking about. Nigeria is a poor country. A lot of people don't know this. We have potentials, but potential does not mean that you are in abundance. You can have potentials and still be poor throughout your life. And that is the situation we are in. We are a very poor country. Our budget entirely, our national budget, subnational budget is less than $50 billion. So you cannot, there is no way you'll be living like this. And, a president will pass, you count 70 vehicles on his convoy.
With so much agility with which you defend some of these policies. But anyways, thank you so much again. We have been hanging out with Ezokoli Blessing Chimezie, and he is the convener of Take Back Naija movement. And thank you so much again for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much.
But anyways, the long and short of this conversation is that there is no coalition for now, but there's still talks, and until those talks are being concluded on, the information, of course, will be brought right back here. I'm looking forward to a time where Mr. Chimezie will come and defend some of the things that he has spoken about here today. I personally am looking forward to it. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you from the morning hour right until this time. You have been true to the Rapid Dawn. I'll see you again tomorrow, same time, same station. Keep it locked in. Bye.
This world is not my home.
The family of